Our favorite season is here, and I'm not talking about winter, because if you know me, not a fan of the cold. I'm talking about holiday season. Yes, over the next 2 months, we'll be going through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and a couple other holidays depending on what you're going to be celebrating, but those are two that are definitely on my radar. And with this time of year comes not only regular spending, but a lot of overspending, because we get bombarded with holiday deals, Black Friday sales, Christmas sales. Every type of sale you could think of is going to be hitting the market over these next 2 months. So this week, I wanted to dive into what really goes on around this time of year and why we feel so pressured to spend money that we sometimes don't have, especially when we can just say no and tell our friends, hey, listen, maybe this year we don't exchange gifts. Let's come up with some other ideas of things that we can do to spend time together and still show that we care for one another. But what do we do year after year after year? We fall into the same trap over and over and over again, and we stand behind that credit card and swipe away like we don't have to pay that debt once the new year comes. And then we find ourselves in the same cycle. And for some people, which I was reading earlier, they're still paying off that debt from last year. So like I said, I want to dive into this week and figure out how can we avoid this cycle that people seem to continue to get stuck in, and really tell ourselves we don't have to give in to the pressure. So let's get into it. And we'll be back in 3, 2, 1. We go. Welcome back, family, to another episode of the First Sip Podcast. I'm your host, Dikembe Smith, and this week we are sipping on some lemon ginger tea to end off the day and to end out the week. But like I said in the intro, we are here to talk about holiday spending, right? It is right about the beginning of November, depending on when you're listening to this. And a couple weeks, we're going to be hitting Thanksgiving. And right at Thanksgiving, we are hit with Black Friday. And if you're not familiar with Black Friday, it is a huge sales time here in America where pretty much everything that you could think of from retail space gets put on sale. They want to give customers a reason to come out and say, hey, listen, look at these prices. You haven't seen these prices all year. So come out and spend now, especially because of what's coming next month, less than a month away, Christmas time. And you're going to have to give gifts to all the people you love. And if you don't have gifts for them, then obviously you don't love them. So we get stuck in that psychological trap and just get stuck in the pit of overspending over and over and over again. And this is something I noticed not only from myself, but when I talk to other people, right, from the research that I've been doing to diving into these things. It's like, I always like to just see if there's a little bit more validity to what I'm believing and making sure it's just not me feeling these things, right? So when I'm looking into this stuff, I'm like, oh, wait. People are feeling the same way I'm feeling. They do want to cut down on how many gifts we're kind of forced to have to give around this time of year and find other ways of showing that we still want to be around each other, right? So I want to start off, like I said, talking about why is it that we feel pressured once again every single year to give gifts, and sometimes things that people don't even need. It's something maybe we feel like we should say, okay, let me pick that up because, oh, well, I think they'll like it. And, I think they'll like this, or maybe I heard them talk about this thing, once 6 months ago or 8 months ago. So let me get it for them now. And of course, I'm not going to talk about not getting gifts for people you care about, especially if you can afford it, right? That's not the conversation we're having today. If you can afford to do these things and you want to show the people around you what it is, like how much you appreciate them, why would you not do that, right? I remember I was talking about this with my friends the other day, just a few years ago when we were exchanging gifts, right? This was still during the pandemic, and it was such a good time, right? A good feeling to be able to exchange these things and say like, oh, what'd you get? What'd you get? And it's a cool feeling, right? It's a great feeling to be able to do that. But the one thing that I think that we keep in mind is that you don't have to break the bank when it comes to doing these things. And I think that sometimes we forget about that. We sit back and say, okay, well, for me to really show this person I care, I can't spend anything under $100, $200, $500. And because if I do, then they're going to look at me and think like, well, this is all I'm worth to you. And like I say, sometimes we add on this pressure into our own mind that isn't really coming from any real place, and it doesn't have any validity because this person has never said this to us. They've never said, hey, I specifically want to get this for this date, and if I don't get it, then I'm not talking to you anymore. No, this stuff doesn't happen. This is stuff that we tell ourselves, like I said, and add on extra pressure. I could only imagine how it is for parents who have kids, because they don't always have to say, but sometimes they very much do. I remember how I was when I was a kid telling my parents, hey, I want this, I want that thing, I want this thing, I want that thing. So like I said, I don't have kids, so I can only imagine what it is to be in that type of arena and saying, okay, well, I can't have, Christmas morning and my kid's not seeing anything under the tree. How do I have that explanation for them? I will say though, I am here to tell you that there are some times, and I have experienced this, and I'm pretty sure there are other families out there who might be listening to this who have experienced this, where some Christmas mornings you're going to wake up and you better just be happy, right, that there's a meal on the table and you can come and sit together with your family because you're going through some tough times, right? You may not be able to get all the gifts that you got 5 years ago, 6 years ago when you were younger. Things might change, right? And this is, like I said, it's not an easy conversation to ever have with kids or like, people in your life, like I said, who you care about, and you want to always be joyful and full of just happiness around this time of year. But like I said, this is where the reality of it comes in. And I think sometimes when we avoid the reality of it is what ends up getting us stuck inside that never ending cycle. Like I said, where we're going to be in the new year now sitting back being like, man, I really shouldn't have charged that extra $1,500 to that credit card. How am I going to pay this off? I'm going to be paying this off now until the next year. And I bring that up because that was an actual stat that I read where it showed that 31% of people are still paying off their credit card debt from last year's holiday spending. So like I said, this isn't just something that I'm making up and saying, oh, well, people are doing it. No, some people are going out of their way and spending money that they know they don't have. And that's on top of their regular expenses, right? Because let's not act like your regular budget has just gone away for the month. So when you're compounding that with other expenses, right, other spending that just comes out of nowhere, especially if you don't have certain, right, like guardrails to cut down on how much you're going to be doing, man, it can get crazy real fast, right? So that's why I also want to talk about throughout this episode, right, is how do you set those boundaries and what are some other things that you can maybe do with your family, with your friends to cut down, like I said, on that overall spending. So you're not looking at your budget at the end of December and saying, man, I'm going to have to go and get 2 or 3 jobs at the beginning of 2026 because I'm buried here. This is a bad hole I done put myself in. So what does it look like to set boundaries? Now, setting boundaries to me is plain and simple, just means like sticking to a budget. And I know I say that and it sounds very simple, but just ask your friends, family members, like, hey, do you actually stick to like a solid budget every single month? Like, do you know how much extra money you have to spend around holiday time, or do you kind of just go with the flow, and you know how much you have to pay for bills and then whatever's left is left, right? Because I've been in the financial space for about 12 years now. And one thing I realize is that a lot of people talk about budgeting and a lot of people also don't budget. So it's one of those things where, it's, you should be doing it, but are we actually doing it, right? It's like eating your fruits and vegetables and, like that kind of stuff. Like, I know I should be doing it, but yeah, I should probably go ahead and have an apple or grab a banana sometime instead of, the soda or the bag of chips. We know these things, but we don't always do them. And that's where I like to break down the psychology, like the behavior that goes into a lot of these things, because it's not always as easy as knowing right from wrong, right? A lot of this is, okay, well, what am I seeing around me? Like, what do I currently know? And where am I just mentally, right, when it comes to being able to go through these times of year, right? And not kind of just be distracted and say like, oh, well, Black Friday, look at that deal for that TV. Oh, and then I still got to get my kids something. And then, oh, look at that deal for that TV. And I definitely got to get that. Oh, my friend would definitely like those shoes, so I got to get him that. And then, oh, my brother would appreciate this too, so I got to get that. It becomes a lot at the end of the day. And when you're looking at your credit card statement next month, you're going to say, what was I thinking? Where did I think this money was going to come from? You didn't think it all the way through, right? Your mental game wasn't that strong to say, okay, well, let me take a couple steps further and really map this out. We don't do that. And like I said, that's what ends up kicking us in the butt later down the road and being like, I really didn't need to buy all this ish, but here I am now. So another thing I would recommend doing too around this time of year, if you do want to kind of set some boundaries, start putting some cash aside before these holidays come up, so you can say, okay, well, I know from my last couple of paychecks, right, maybe my last 4 or my last 6 paychecks, I went ahead and I took out $50 every paycheck, $100 every paycheck, specifically for holiday spending, right? And depending on where you have your savings account set up or your checking accounts, you might be able to open up another account for free or like a sub account, right? Like I know banks like Ally Bank, Capital One, they allow you to do sub accounts within an account. And this is somewhere where you can kind of just put that money, almost like the envelope system, away specifically for certain goals and say, okay, well, for holiday spending, I have a target of $500 or $1,000, and I'm halfway there already at the beginning of November. Which, think about that. Think about how much stress that saves you going into the holiday time, knowing that you already have half of what you plan on spending tucked away, right? And I'm saying these things once again, hoping that somebody who was me like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is listening to this and saying like, wow, man, that's a good idea. I should probably do that. And if you're not doing it this year, then do it next year, right? You can start even earlier. You can start in January, and you can do this for your holiday spending. And of course, you can do this for other things, right? You can do this for vacations. You can do this maybe if you want to buy, a big purchase like a car, right? Maybe, of course, I talk about buying homes, maybe you want to move into your first apartment, because that's my work as a real estate agent. But the envelope system really does work. And it's a great way for you to not get that money just mixed into things that it shouldn't be mixed in with, right? And like I said, so you can stick to your budget and not be looking back at it and saying like, oh wait, I just cut into my grocery budget because, like I said, I wanted to buy that gift, or buy this outing right around Christmas time, so I bought tickets to this thing for us to go to. It can become a mess very, very fast. And that's why I said, take it from somebody who did not have this type of discipline and who is not very good at jotting things down and who is still working on these things, right? So I'm also, as I'm talking about these things, I was jotting this down earlier today. I'm like, well, what are some things that I should really be sticking to, and things that I wish I would have done also, years ago. So like I said, I'm learning here with you guys. I never want to come off as like, oh man, he really is just, he knows everything. I don't. What I do know is the lessons that I've learned from the mistakes I've made. And like I said, just trying to move forward and share with you guys, and like you guys share with me some of the things that you're doing, so we can all grow together, right? And not make these mistakes over and over again. So now that we have those boundaries set up, what are we going to do at the end of the holiday season, right? Once we've made it through the Black Friday, we've made it through Christmas time, and the gifts have been exchanged. Everybody's happy, your belly's full, and now you're looking at yourself and not only saying, okay, I got to get that gym membership because I got to go ahead and cut down this weight that I've added throughout the holiday season, but you're also looking at those bank statements and saying, okay, how do I cut down on that debt that I've added throughout this holiday season? Because like I said, these things go up. We all see it. We know what's going to happen. So we got to plan for it, right? So let's plan for the next year and say, well, I know that this credit card debt that I'm going to go ahead and take on, or like I said, because especially if you don't have the cash already set aside, if the cash is already set aside, it's spent. So all you got to do then going into the new year is saying, okay, what's my goal for the holiday season coming up in 2026? Let me go ahead and set that number and just break it down, right? Just do the math. How much do I need to save every month, every paycheck? And at that point, think about it. If you have 11 months of runway to go ahead and save that, you might be saving what, $25 a paycheck, $50 a paycheck. And now at the end of the year, you're not even stressing. You're sitting there happy. You're just clicking away at all the deals. You're like, okay, let me get that. Let me get that. Let me get that. Oh, you're going to love that thing. That's the space we want to be in, right? And that's why, like I said, we're always talking about building financial security, figuring out what are those things that we can do to not only enjoy, right, the fruits of our labor, but also being able to be responsible. And like I always talk about with my friends, being fiscally conservative, right? Like understanding that money is a very powerful thing, and it can take you up and it can take you down very fast, right? And if you understand how to control it and how to manage it, then it can be a very great tool as well. And that's something, like I say, I want to continue to learn more about, continue to share with you guys about, and just see like those different things that we can do to continue to enjoy it, right? Because that's what it's about at the end of the day, right? Like I always sign off with, enjoy your first sip. That's what we're here for, right? Enjoying our first sip, enjoying financial security, and just enjoying life. So before we sign off, I got a content rec of the week for you guys. And this one is a great show that I just started. And I know some of you are going to hear it and you're going to be like, yo, bro, you're late, right? You should have, where have you been? We've been knowing about this show. But for me, I'm sorry I'm late, but I finally started Landman. And for those of you who are my friends, why didn't you tell me to start this sooner? Because as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, this is pretty much like Snowfall, but just with oil fields. And if you're not familiar with the show, right, it's based down south, right, where oil pretty much runs everything down there, right? And if you're familiar with those areas in Texas, then there's a lot of oil money that moves around. And the people down there have a lot of old oil money, right? So they've been there for decades and decades and decades. And they really have a system there that you don't want to mess with. But what I'm learning so far from the early episodes that I've watched is that it always seems to be something that goes wrong with the system, right? There's either people are dying, planes are getting crashed into, things are blowing up, and it's just, you cannot predict what goes on a day-to-day basis. And I'm watching this and I'm like, wow, that is a job I would never want. And I'm wondering, is this really what is going on down in Texas? Because I kind of understand now why those people down there kind of come off as a little crazy and just a little, just ready to go all the time. I get it now. I get it. right? I get you guys. So if you haven't checked out that show, check out Landman. And if you have checked it out, let me know what you think, because I'm loving it so far. Probably about halfway through the first season. And yeah, it's great. So, like I said, I'm always going to be sharing some content Rics with you guys. Let me know what you've been checking out. I'm going to go ahead and end this episode here. Got the game coming on tonight in about an hour or so. I'm going to go check that out. Let me know who you guys are rooting for. I'm pretty sure the Broncos are going to pull this out, but wouldn't be surprised if some nonsense happens and the Raiders end up winning this, because that's just the NFL this year. And don't fall into the trap of sports betting all your money away on these apps. That's definitely something I'm going to talk about in the future. So, because a lot of people are getting messed up from that, and not enough people are talking about it. So, until that time, stay tuned, stay curious, and as always, enjoy your first sip.